The football kickoff.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Welcome along to the football kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm delighted to welcome David Connolly and Phil Egan to the show this week. Phil's in studio with us. David is on the line. David, good afternoon. Good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads.
Yeah, we're all good here as well. The 5 games we're talking about, Leicester versus Manchester City is the early kickoff, 12:30 on BT Sport tomorrow. That's Saturday the 29th of October. It's one of the busiest football Saturdays I can remember in a long, long time. Newcastle Villa is 3 o'clock on Premier Sports. Fulham Everton is 5:50 on Sky Sports. And Liverpool Leeds is 7:45 on Sky Sports. That's all Saturday. And then on Sunday, Manchester United versus West Ham is the 5th game we're going to talk about on the show this morning. That's Sunday at 4:15 on Sky Sports. Richie McCormick and Kenny Cunningham will be on commentary duty for that one. One of the things we want to talk to you about, David, was penalties in the aftermath of Riyad Mahrez's difficulties during the week. Do you just take Riyad Mahrez off them? Are they leaving him on because they're like a little bit concerned about his confidence and they think this might be a chance to get him back up? How do you fix that?
Good question. Look, as someone who has missed his fair share, and obviously a big one at that, for Ireland, penalties is, look, some players can make it look so easy. Ivan Toney, in the Premier League seems to have his technique absolutely spot on. For Riyad, obviously he's had quite a lot of misses. I'm not too sure why they continue with him. Maybe, like you say, it is a little bit of confidence. But I could also look at West Ham. A couple of penalties. You think, right, Mikel Antonio, he even won one the other night, and he still didn't take the penalty as a striker. I hoped that we would get a penalty because you nick a goal from a penalty and then it gets you off on a little run. As it is for Mahrez, it's unusual because obviously he's found it difficult to be a regular there anyway. So I don't know who else could have needed a goal that was on the pitch, or you just flit it around. It's a difficult one, but look. Unfortunately, I'm no expert. What I do know is, because I miss quite a lot, is that you can try and perfect it in training and just try and get that ball as much or as far in the corners as you can, and obviously Mahrez's wasn't.
Did you miss a lot?
I missed a few. I wouldn't say a lot, but I did miss a few. But nonetheless, it didn't kind of deter me, because I think some players just will not go near a penalty. They don't want a penalty, and I think that's fair enough. But I think others who do want to take it, as I said, it can get you off on a little goal-scoring run. That's why I'd be more inclined to have it as maybe a striker. Like I said, for West Ham and Mikel Antonio, especially when he won a penalty the other night, if it was him, I would have been saying, right, that is mine. Let me take that, and it might get me off on a little goal-scoring run.
I vaguely remember Thierry Henry having a thing where if he won the penalty, Pires would take it, but otherwise he would take it.
Yeah, we've had that in the past. I think Lampard and Di Canio, I don't know if you remember, those two had a real, Phil will probably remember, they had a tug of war over that ball, so, but no, I think it is, I got to say, I think for goal scorers, it can be a good way to get them going and get them off the mark.
Yeah, whenever you see two players tussle over a ball, you just think it's not a good idea. One that springs to mind is Kevin Morales took one for Everton, and Leighton Baines is on the pitch, and Morales missed. I remember Jordan Henderson and Balotelli. Balotelli said, "Give me the ball," and Balotelli obviously just stroked it in. Brilliant penalty taker. There's certain players that when they're stepping over a penalty, they're going to score. Ivan Toney, I think Ivan Toney is so good at penalties. If I'm Gareth Southgate, I bring him. You think of what he did in the Euros final when he brought on specific.
Will he do it again?
But imagine that was where the run ended.
Yeah.
But the Mahrez one is interesting. He was the one that actually got fouled. It was debatable if he was fouled by Emre Can the other night. But I was looking at his stats for penalties. He scored 10 from 14. But the 4 misses have come very recently. Obviously, the last 2 in the Champions League, the one at West Ham last season, and then he skied one at Anfield to win a game when they had a penalty very late on. It was a 0-0 draw. But Gundogan was on the pitch the other night. I thought maybe he'd be the one to take one, but he missed one at Anfield a few years ago. That's the thing, they've all missed them. De Bruyne has missed one.
You probably shouldn't expect to have a 100% record, right?
No.
But when a player misses more than one, it's like, okay, you're out of the rotation for at least a few months.
Yeah. Well, if they get one tomorrow, if Erling Haaland isn't on the pitch, I'm thinking Gundogan will probably take one.
So as we're broadcasting this now, we're uncertain about whether or not he will be on the pitch. There's like the lingering foot injury.
Hey, you know who out of all the players I would have taken the penalty out of all of them? The one player who will be on the pitch, I'd have Edison.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if there's a better ball striker in that Man City team who'd probably take the net off, it would be Edison. But I doubt that would happen because But I guess consistently, when you have someone who's a consistent penalty taker playing week in, week out, like an Ivan Toney, their technique is owned. They're always, they're ready for it. Every week. They're probably taking them in training the day before. Whereas when you kind of spread the penalty taking around, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not too sure it works.
Let's get into the game then. Leicester versus Manchester City is 12:30 on BT Sport. These early kickoffs have, they've thrown up some pretty interesting results in recent weeks, like last week.
Yeah. Liverpool, I know we'll talk about them later. They just, when I watch them at 12:30, it's like somebody forgot to tell them that they're on. But you wouldn't imagine with City that that'll be an issue. And this is a good test for Leicester because they've tightened things up. They're sitting a little bit deeper. Wout Faes has been a very good acquisition for them, the Belgian defender. And they have pace that they can do it on the break. So you'd imagine Brendan Rodgers will go with the same approach tomorrow. And they have caused...
Has the goalkeeper got better miraculously?
He has looked a bit more comfortable, but he's had more protection. Ask me that maybe at about 2:30 tomorrow, and I could say no. It turns out Danny Ward is still struggling.
What have you made of the recent uptick in form from Leicester, David? Because the noise around was that they were going to get rid of Brendan Rodgers, that it was game to game, and it's very difficult to make a recovery from that. But they have made a recovery.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I feel like if they were to sack him, they'd have to pay him up, and then they'd need another manager, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, there's a lot to take into account, right? But cut long story short, they've got some really, really good players. And I don't think it's a coincidence, say, once everyone is back fit, playing, he's got his regular players playing football. Harvey Barnes, for example, is class. Make no mistake, he's excellent. He was brilliant against Leeds as well the week before. He got another goal against Wolves. Tielemans. They've got so many good players. Obviously, Vardy grabbing a goal, which is really important for him. But look, and we all talk about Maddison. I think out of all the games, as we know, Danny Ward is going to have to play really well tomorrow. I know he's got 4 clean sheets in 5, but prior to that, he was really, really, really struggling. He's going to face a barrage of shots tomorrow. Let's see how they get on. I think this is still going to be a difficult game. A very difficult game. Will Mahrez play, for example, I wonder, against Leicester? That would be interesting. Will he start him again against his former team? But nonetheless, I think those victories for Leicester have just eased the pressure because now they can go into this game knowing that, well, if they do lose, it's kind of an expected loss, right? And I think as long as they put up a good performance, I think the fans are certainly a lot more content.
Yeah, it feels like there's been it can go pear-shaped, it could get absolutely spanked, and that could lead to demoralisation of confidence and all that kind of stuff. But as it stands, I think Brendan Rodgers is more likely than not to still be there through the World Cup, and then he'll have the January transfer window to hopefully do some work with the rest of the squad and maybe get a new goalkeeper.
Well, you say that right, but like everyone, the owner there has been hit massively, like financially. There is no money there, apparently. That's why Schmeichel left, because he was offered a 3-year deal on the same sort of money as he was at Leicester. And they couldn't give him more than a year. I'm not too sure there is that much money around. I'm being honest. So, it might be more of a case for them. Can they hold on to some of those players, your Maddisons and your Tielemans, if they got a decent offer for them, rather than we're going to buy again? I'm not too sure they can buy again.
Well, maybe there'll be an offer made for Brendan Rodgers. It's very interesting that Villa have paid $5 million release clause, and it could have been anything between 10 and 30 million for the sporting manager that was quoted, depending on the stage of the contract it was and what you read. That there's now a transfer market for good managers, and if Rodgers was to transfer the recent form and sustain it, you can see one of those clubs who are slightly above them or slightly below them in the table maybe taking advantage of the fact that they're broke.
Yeah, also as well, World Cup is the time to make the change, bring them in, and all the clubs will have little mini pre-seasons to get them back up to speed before the season resumes, and that would be a very opportune time to bring in a new manager. But I think he's definitely weathered the storm, Brendan Rodgers. Those two players, Tielemans obviously hasn't signed this new deal, and Maddison, Newcastle have been linked with Maddison a few times, and we obviously know Newcastle have money now where they could attract somebody like Maddison.
So that game is 12:30 tomorrow. The 3 o'clock kickoff is on Premier Sports. This is Newcastle against Aston Villa. You were saying it's a sliding doors moment, really, where Unai Emery could have been the Newcastle manager. There was an issue around the release and all that kind of stuff, but it seemed like he was definitely interested. They went 9/10 of the way to him getting the gig. He won't start officially at Villa until next week, but I'm sure he'll be keeping a very close eye on this, Phil.
Absolutely. And if you're Aaron Danks, you just say, look, just do what you did last week. But one thing Newcastle have done very well under Eddie Howe is they've made St James's Park a really hard place to go, and they're in the top 4 for a reason, and you would expect Newcastle to win. But if Villa go there and win, a penny for Stephen Gerrard's thoughts if they go back to back. Whatever about the Brentford win, winning away to Newcastle would be a statement win for Aston Villa, and I'm sure Unai Emery would be skipping into work on Tuesday morning. Yeah,
I suspect Newcastle will have enough for them, but the ebullience of the first 15 minutes of the performance at Villa Park last week, David, shocked a lot of people. I saw a lot of people criticising the Villa players for quitting on Stephen Gerrard. Maybe they were just free from the burden of his angry persona.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's always difficult because I've been on both sides of this fence. Where you've been a player and the manager goes and it's all the players' fault if things improve, and sometimes in the media everyone wants to say the right thing, right? Blame the players when sometimes it isn't always the players' fault. I look at a couple of things that Aaron did, and it wasn't rocket science if you've seen how they played of late. I mean, Ollie Watkins, when he started at Exeter, I was working at Bristol City, and I think he cost $1.5 million in the end to Brentford. But Bristol City wouldn't pay the $1.5 million, right? But he came through as a winger, and he can run his socks off, and he can work really, really hard. No surprise, Danks puts him wide. Because, I mean, that's a position he's known his whole life, He then puts, Danny Ings was top goal scorer, joint top goal scorer in the Premier League a couple of seasons ago, puts him down through the middle. I mean, a really workmanlike, energetic team who know their jobs in positions that isn't, I don't think it was... It was more than just... It seemed more than just positional. It also seemed a combination of positional and maybe just... I don't know. We don't know how Stephen works, right? Stephen Gerrard. We don't really know what he was like on the training ground day to day. We don't really know that. So, but as it is, it seemed like the pressure was off. Saying that, Brentford on their day can be really bad, but they can also be really good. And I think maybe they just, I don't know, just blitzed them in the opening period, and that obviously helped, get the 3 points.
It was a little bit fluky. Like, there's no doubt about it. It was a little bit fluky. Like, that the performance all came at that one moment, and everybody played really well for the first time in a long time. Plus, it's a better structure and a freedom and no responsibility.
Yeah.
Like,
is there a case though, David, where there is a manager in place, and when they leave, it just lifts the mood? And I'm not specifically talking about Stephen Gerrard. I think back to even look at when Solskjaer took over and Mourinho had left. It was almost a case with the United players. The handbrake was released, and it was like, oh, thank God we don't have to listen to him anymore. We can start enjoying our football again.
Yeah, absolutely, that can be the case. That's what I mean. But you can't, we've had this last week in terms of talking about Ronaldo and the management of players. I mean, they're not robots, right? These are human beings, and it is easy to blame the players, but obviously football and team sports is far more complex than just saying, they're out of form or they weren't trying for the manager. It's far more complex than that to get these top athletes, top players playing to the peak of their power, which, look, on their day Villa should be pushing for that top 10, right? They should be beating Brentford. Shouldn't they? They should.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Right? Especially at the money that they spent,
Yeah, man for man, player for player.
And the wage bill.
That should be that should be no real surprise. So they're now playing at the level that they should be playing at, and the challenge will be going to Villa. He'll need another energetic team. They'll have to work really, really hard. You know, he probably won't be bringing in Coutinho, for example, because he'll need legs in and around the pitch to run around. I'm not too sure bringing McGinn either. You know, will he go for the same settled team? You know, you'd assume he probably would.
Well, that makes sense. Phil asked a good question before we came on. What does success look like for Villa under Unai Emery for the rest of this season?
Oh, good question. You know, I think they've got a top operator there, like a top manager. What would it be? I don't know. Breaking into the top 10. Then after that, you know, could they challenge for 7th? You know, that would be me. First off, top 10. Can you get top 10? After that, I think the players they've got on their day, as I said, I think they should easily be a top 10, if not challenging for Europa League place.
Even this season, like before? Yeah, right. Okay, that's interesting.
Oh, I mean, look, there's how many points left? 28 games left, maybe. You know, do the maths.
Yeah,
70-odd points. And 80 points.
And you know, the mid-season, pre-season that everybody's going to get is probably an unaccounted for factor. Villa have got in before that. He'll have that period of time. Not that many of their players will be at the World Cup.
Exactly, and I tell you, I know what Phil thinks, but the fact that they've even gone to pay a release clause, I think is, in some ways, disheartening if you're a Villa fan, because this isn't a manager who was maybe on the side, sacked from somewhere else, and they've taken what's available. They've gone out, targeted him, you know his clause, and think, well, that is a price worth paying. I think if you're Villa fans, you know that they haven't taken an easy option in. They've gone and got the best man for the job that they could get in a job, which I think is. I think if you're a Villa fan, I know there's some people going, as if he's maybe not what they were hoping for, or maybe
Champions League semi-final coach. Thanks very much. Yeah,
Europa League winner manager. I think you can't judge Unai Emery on what he did at Arsenal, because at the time I think Arsenal were they weren't in a good place. He started well, but as soon as things started to go wrong, now he did have things that he did wrong at Arsenal where you were left scratching your head in terms of man management, tactics, that kind of thing. One thing that would worry me sometimes about him is when they go ahead in games that he almost tries to shut
conservative
up. Yeah, and look, that can work if you've got really good counter-attacking players. Then that's fine, and you can pick teams off. But I think it's an exciting appointment for Villa, and I know, Gerard, we were talking about this before the show as well. Like cup runs. Yeah. He's obviously proven that he's a very good cup manager. Yeah.
Jonathan Wilson was on during the week saying that those two-legged ties is something that he's excellent at, like really working out what the opposition do and then counteracting that. So let's move on. Fulham against Everton is on Sky Sports on Saturday afternoon at 5:30. Fulham are doing really well.
They are. They were in my bottom 3 at the start of the season. They obviously were very impressive on the first weekend against Liverpool, but I almost put it down to more Liverpool being bad. But Fulham have had some really good results this season, obviously down to Mitrovic. Now, let's see how things pan out for them, because we've seen this with some promoted teams. They start well and then they start to run out of steam as the second half of the season kicks in, and they usually can hang on. So they look like they're primed to stay in the top flight, but also to add a bit of spice to it, obviously Marco Silva's back at Everton. One season with them, full season, he finished 8th. Then the following December he was gone after they got spanked in a Merseyside derby.
They'd be happy with 8 now, wouldn't they?
They would absolutely love it. But Everton have shown promising signs as well under Frank Lampard. I know an Everton fan was at the game last week and said it was incredible to be at a game at Goodison Park where things were so comfortable. Hasn't happened for a while.
And a lot of that might have had to do with the players coming back from injury, and they seem to be coming back from injury into a style of play that everybody understands what they're doing. So you'd have to give Frank Lampard a lot of credit. The doubts about him after Chelsea were probably quite fair, but he seems to have turned this around. He's got now the relegation survival on his CV, and he started to come through a very sticky patch of injuries at the start of the season, and they're definitely going to be safe this year. So
they recruited well.
Yeah, and they're all fitting into the team quickly, which again is a sign of a good manager. So what do you expect to happen here, David?
Yeah, I think this is going to be look, there's a lot of good matchups here, because if you're Everton, you got, say, Cody Tarkowski. How are they going to man mark Mitrovic? Because no matter what you say, he is when he's in the box, right, he is a man mountain. He is absolutely impossible to mark. He's got the muscle. He's got the technique. He's a penalty box master. Make no mistake. A master in the box. So how does Cody and Tarkowski deal with him? That'll be the real issue. And then at the other end, you got Calvert-Lewin up against Tim Ream and Tosin. And, if Dominic now back fit, he's got a goal. I tell you what, at both ends of the pitch, you just wonder. That's where, obviously, as in most games, the game will be won. But, it'll be interesting how both sets of centre-halves deal with the strikers, because for both teams, I think both strikers, obviously, are so important to them.
All right, late Saturday game, 7:45 kickoff, Liverpool versus Leeds. This one also on Sky Sports. The Liverpool, the truth of where they are at the moment, they're a Champions League team who are maybe going to be excellent in those knockout games from now on. They're going to have to try and scrap to get fourth, but they're not going to resurrect a title challenge. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, I think the title is long gone. I think even before they beat City, that was long gone.
Yeah, I think it was gone before they beat City, and then you're like, they've got a chance if they could just go on a mad run and win 15 games in a row, and then Forest.
I think there's Liverpool have to accept that there's going to be inconsistencies, because the starting 11s that he's having to put out. If you look at the starting 11 that he put out against Forest last week, when you saw it, you thought, this could be a tricky afternoon, because the likes of Fabio Carvalho, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, to bring these players on, usually they're going to be part of a stronger team. But it's rare that they're going to be all starting together unless it's a League Cup game.
Yeah.
That to me last week looked like a League Cup starting 11. That's not Klopp's fault, because that's all he could choose from. I mean, people might say, well, it is his fault. Maybe the training regime, there's something wrong with that because they're picking up so many injuries. But Luis Diaz didn't get injured training. He got injured in the Arsenal game. Jota got injured against City. It was a muscle injury. But I think that's just where Liverpool are at. Konate looks like he'll be back for it. He was on the bench the other night.
Talk to us about the way they're playing.
Well, they're playing 4-4-2 now, and Klopp talked about the diamond formation. But I know when Stephen Doyle was doing the City game for us, he said it to me the next day. He was like, Liverpool were playing a diamond formation against City at times. Fabinho obviously at the base, Firmino at the tip of it, and then that allows you had to have, well, now it would be Salah and Nunes as your two front players. Klopp said it the other day. He didn't want Nunes out left. Nunes just appears to be everywhere. He's great fun. At one stage, he's missing an open goal where he hits the post. Then he's intercepting the ball as a centre half. Then he's scoring from a corner. So whatever people think of him, he is all action. And I think he's only going to get better.
The diamond gives you Mo Salah through the middle as well, which obviously is important.
Makes your midfield more compact.
Did they play against Ajax during the week?
They did, not for the whole game. And for the first 20 minutes, Liverpool were open. And Ajax hit the post after a couple of minutes. It could have been a different story. Because we know, you know yourself, David, as soon as Liverpool concede, then it's almost like the shoulders slump a bit and they're thinking, here we go again, we have to do the hard work. But they've shown pretty much this season, once they score first, they win the game. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think we've got to touch on is that pass from Henderson, because I know Jordan, when he's in or out the team, but he's played that same pass, that outside of the boot pass. That's the second time now that has been an incredible pass. Do you remember the other one was against United? Same player as well, yeah. Yeah, to Salah. And, he is sort of, I don't know, his passing is just, has really come on. Well, come on is the wrong word, but he has shown a range to his passing that maybe people might not have thought he had. Brilliant outside of the ball, outside of the boot pass to Salah to put him through. Look, the diamond has its strengths and weaknesses. I've played in a diamond before. It gets you two strikers. I like Salah more centrally, so that gets him maybe in the game a little bit more. Nunes is full of running, so you need two really athletic strikers. It also gets you a talented sort of creative player, and Firmino can play that role. But it means the outside of the diamond have got to work really, really hard, and at times you can obviously be exploited in those wide areas. There's often an awful lot of space. I don't know whether they'll play that way against Leeds like tomorrow, but I think it was good, for example, that
that Trent was back in the team, because I think not starting him against Forest I thought was a mistake. I said that last week. He should have started him, because against a side that sits in and defends, I think you'll need his creativity in the fullback areas. But yeah, I think Liverpool will win here, because I think Leeds look like they're in really, really deep trouble.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. We've seen Forest obviously double down and give their struggling manager a new contract and stick with him. We've seen Leicester, probably because they have to, stick with their manager, stick with him, and they've got an uptick in results. Could Leeds double down and stick with Jesse Marsh, or is this time to cut bait?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's when I look at the game last week against Fulham, I mean, it was a brilliant game, end to end. It could have gone either way. Leeds had loads of chances themselves, but Bamford had that sort of one-on-one. But I don't know. I think as everyone is feeling now that it's going to be difficult for Jesse Marsh to continue, and I think Liverpool are going to win here. So that looks like it's going to be another defeat. I don't know. I can't see it turning around for Jesse there.
It'll be 2 points from 9 games if they lose tomorrow.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Like, you think back to when they beat Chelsea 3-0 at Elland Road, you're thinking maybe like the fact that they stayed up in such miraculous circumstances on the final day last season, and then they start this season well. They've actually, in fairness, they have signed some good players.
Yeah. So
if
maybe that's all the more reason to get somebody in who might be able to do something better with them.
Yeah, I watch them sometimes. I watch them against Palace, where they started really well. They got a goal. They didn't get their second goal. And then when Palace equalised, they just seemed to... It just knocked their confidence, and Palace went on to win the game. But it just seems that it's all energy. They're still with that approach. Obviously, they don't go man for man the way Bielsa did. But they don't score enough goals. And they're not good enough at the back. That was always a problem with Bielsa, but it doesn't matter who plays in central defence, they've got mistakes in them.
Manchester United against West Ham is on Sunday. This is on Sky Sports at 4:15. What was your stat about David Moyes?
I'm just saying David Moyes has never won away at a big ground like the likes of an Old Trafford or an Anfield, and even they went to Anfield last week and they had a chance. They missed a penalty. They put Liverpool under serious pressure for the last 20 minutes, but it's how they start the game. It's very much let's not lose. And I mean, that's a long run for a manager of such experience, and to have so many games under his belt that he hasn't got a signature win at one of those big games or big grounds even. Yeah,
if it was a couple of times, David, you'd say, well, that's kind of an interesting coincidence, but over a long period of time where you've been in charge of really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say is their victory against Bournemouth was absolutely massive. I worked on that game. They were 17th going into that game, and his demeanour, David Moyes, you could tell this was a massive game for them. They had to win that, otherwise the week would be looking an awful lot different. As it is, they were excellent. They got 3 points. They obviously backed that up again the other night, got another victory. So they're going into this game in a completely different mindset, and if they play like they did against Bournemouth, I mean, Souček was attacking the box really well. Antonio came on. I thought Scamacca was disappointing. I thought he had a really poor game. But if he plays Antonio, this is going to be a difficult one for United. This is definitely not a straightforward one. If they'd have lost that Bournemouth game, it would have been completely different, because even then a victory in the Europa League wouldn't really do much to the confidence, going into the league knowing that they're struggling so badly. As it is now, they're in the top 10, 2 wins in a week. Tough game for United now.
What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with David. It is a tough game, and both games last season were settled very late on. United scored late winners, and I would imagine, look, we know how David Moyes is going to set up. He's basically, United's best performances this season have been against teams that have given them a bit of space, so he's going to try and obviously take that away. And I think he would be wise to start Antonio, and just his power and pace on the break, and just that hold-up play, get him isolated against Martinez so he can bully him. Now I think Martinez has learnt a fair bit quickly in the Premier League that he's not going to try and get into a one-on-one battle with Antonio. You give him his space and
kick the opposition early seems to be one of his tactics. He's good at that. It's worked for him so far.
Yeah, he's been excellent. But unfortunately, Varane, we always felt with Varane, it's
borrowed time whenever he's playing.
Yeah, and now you're probably thinking Lindelof will probably start. Harry Maguire did feature last night in the Europa League, but you would still probably prefer to have Lindelof in there instead of Maguire.
Casemiro, what impact is he having on the team?
I mean, the goal obviously was massive last week, but he's a big game player. Like I think he certainly fits for what United need right now.
Yeah.
I think some people would have criticised the signing at the time because it's not forward planning, but sometimes you do need seasoned pros. And when I say seasoned pros, this guy is a multiple Champions League winner.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, if he's so good, why are Real Madrid letting him go? The price was just too good to turn down for Real Madrid. He'd still be playing for Real Madrid if United didn't come in, but he definitely adds the experience. And
Real Madrid get to sign the player for the future because they already have a squad where they're not desperate.
Yeah.
Manchester United were absolutely desperate and they had to sign somebody like him. So I think, in those cases, sometimes you make really bad decisions, but they've made a good decision here with him, and he's having a knock-on impact on everybody around him as well. So it's a tough game. Are you predicting a win for Manchester United, both of you, in the end? Like, is that what you think?
Yeah, I think they could still leak it out, but I don't think it's going to be a free-flowing game, but I still think United are going to eke it out, and I would imagine Ronaldo goes back to being on the bench. I know he scored last night, but he wasn't very good.
No, he's done.
I don't know about that, but yeah, he didn't take a few chances, and even the one he put away, the keeper saves it, and look, all good strikers follow it up, and he did that, but he just looked very frustrated.
There you go. All right, we'll leave it there. David Connolly, Phil Egan, thanks very much. The football kickoff is with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. We'll see you next Friday at 11:30. Take care.
The football kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.